When the choice seems to be to tear down the church
or build a wall around it,
we aim to walk the narrow road of nuance
through the wilderness between the warring factions
and try to figure out what it means
to love God
and people well.
Hey folks, welcome back. So we are continuing our conversation about art made by people of faith and how that affects all kinds of different things and how it is lived out in different contexts by different people. And I, in particular, am very excited that we got to talk to a gentleman named Andy Zipf. He is a singer, songwriter, and an artist and a creator that I have admired for a long time now, more than 10 years now, actually, and really appreciate his approach to his craft and his kind of creative voice and how he ties that to his faith. It was just a wonderful conversation. I mean, seriously, I was so thrilled to get to talk to him, but also thrilled that you all get the benefit of him unpacking a little bit of what's in his head and what is behind the songs that he makes. He has a new album coming out on March the 11th, How to Make a Paper Airplane, and it's just wonderful. I've had the privilege of hearing it and spinning it many times now, and I heartily encourage you when you have a chance to take that album in. The first single, Did You Know I Was a Ghost, is out already on streaming platforms or wherever you get your music. I encourage you to listen to that. But enough promo, let's get to the convo.
Did you know I was a ghost, a feather in a flame? You struck the match and then you wrote my name with a fading
One thing I wanted to
smoke.
ask you, Andy, is that you guys lived kind of Virginia area for a long time. How has that been?
Yeah, so I moved to the DC area in, I think it was probably right around 2000. And I met my wife, Miriam. She grew up right outside DC in Manassas, Virginia. Where, if you're a Civil War buff, that's where the Battle of Bull Run, or actually, some people will say the Battle of First Manassas. I think that's another term, but the sign says Battle of Bull Run because the Union did in fact win. Just as a reminder to everyone listening. But she grew up there, and so yeah, she lived there her whole life, and I lived there, about 18 years, which is I lived there the longest anywhere in my life because I've moved around quite a bit growing up. But we were right outside DC in different suburbs of DC, and coming down here was necessary. My son was 2. We were in a 1-bedroom apartment in McLean, Virginia, and it was a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week hustle to take care of things, And my friend Chuck called me. I'd met him in 2010 because he planted an Anglican church that my wife and I started to attend there after not going to church for, almost a decade. So we met Chuck and his wife, Melissa, in 2010 at Church of the Ascension in Arlington, Virginia. And at that point, Miriam and I had been married for 7 years. I think that's right. Yep. And fast forward to 2018, Chuck had come to Florida, Jacksonville, and he became the pastor of a Presbyterian church here, and asked, did I know anyone that would be interested in coming to be their director of music? So I listed everyone I knew that might be interested. And then at the very end of the conversation, he said, what about you? So Father's Day weekend of 2018, we visited, and, the timing was something that I paid attention to. So it was something that I felt that we needed to do. And then 2 years later, COVID happened. And if we had been in DC and I had been doing the same hustle, we would have been in a bad way.
Yes. It's almost like there's a God.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. And the language I like to use is, I do feel like that God did give us the opportunity to come. That was clear to me. And now, 4 years later, I have this album that I finished. Had I not come here, we wouldn't have experienced many of the things that I'm talking about on this record. And it wouldn't exist. Maybe it would in a different form, perhaps. But, and my dad, may have still, probably would have still died, even though I don't know. This isn't Doctor Strange's, multiverse,
True.
So it's not really, I don't know.
Well, part of human existence is wrestling with the what ifs, I think. And I don't know about you two, but I spend probably more time I should in that headspace and the what might be's and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's pretty normal.
Yeah. Have you seen that Marvel series, What If?
I know what it is, but I've not watched it.
It's good, man. It's really good.
The main thing I've seen from it is the Thanos vision.
Oh yeah,
joke where he just zaps him. It's like, well, there goes 2 movies.
Yep.
Like $3 billion worth of revenue, just zip.
Yep.
If they thought to do that.
I listened to I guess maybe it was the intro to your second season yesterday.
Sure.
And, you and I have had a couple conversations on the phone about this. I feel like it just one conversation that has just continued.
Yes. Yeah, that's
but
probably
I've been having this conversation my whole life,
Yeah.
As a creative person of faith, wanting to tell stories well and not really finding a place to do that within the church. But now I find myself as the director of music and artist in residence at a church. And, that is my work. That's creative work, but I don't reserve that or confuse it with my creative outlet.
So I want to circle back to kind of the more like present space that you're occupying. But one of the things that super interests me when talking to folks who create, and particularly people of faith who create, is the moment or moments when one that you had an experience that kind of alerted you to creativity in whatever form it was. Ryan and I have talked both on the podcast and off about the moments where art really came alive for us, whether it was a movie or a concert experience, or you hear an album and it just whatever it is, it blows your mind, and you're like,
right.
I didn't know that was out there. And then how that transitioned from, wow, this is great, this is my thing, to, I think I want to have a go at that. So can you rewind a bit for us? And are there moments, is there a moment or moments where you remember that kind of happening for you?
Yeah, there's several moments that I can think of and experiences. So my mom taught piano and voice in our houses growing up. And I learned melody and harmony from her. And she was singing in a choir in college, and is classically trained and pretty near like perfect pitch. I'd play a chord. So I think that's a D. Sure enough. So she also loved folk music, and my dad loved the Beach Boys and any song with a story.
Yeah.
So like Johnny Horton.
Yeah. Yes.
In
I know who Johnny Horton
1814 took a little trip.
Fired our guns and the British kept
That's
coming.
exactly right. So my dad loved songs like that.
Yeah.
And also, but I mean, he also loved folk singers that did that as well. He was also really fond of like the Steelers Wheels song, Stuck in the Middle with You. And so both of my parents really appreciated, and this is of course subjective, but what I feel is good art.
Yeah.
And my older brother, he's 2 years older than I am. When I was in middle school, I would say, we started to become aware of some bands like the 77s, the Choir.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Ocean Blue, And actually, we lived in Hershey, Pennsylvania at the time, and the Ocean Blues from Hershey, Pennsylvania. So their album Cerulean, and then, oh my gosh, what is it? Rhythm and the Sound, I think the other one that came out around that time. But so I was just like, oh, they're doing this this is what they do.
Yeah.
They're touring musicians. That was really fascinating to me and exciting. And I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I could do that. But I still had a long way to go just to learn my instrument. I'd played some piano. My mom taught me piano, and then I picked up her classical guitar, and then just hung out with people that knew more about it than I did. And then one summer, this is right after we moved to New Jersey. That's where I went to high school in northern New Jersey. My brother that summer went back to Hershey and worked for Hershey Park. And so I guess it's probably like 89 or 90, probably 89. Because Octane Baby, U2's Octane Baby was coming out. And, of course, like all over MTV, my brother Pete got word that U2 was coming to Hershey Park Arena to rehearse.
Okay.
So we went to the parking lot and sat outside the parking lot and listened to U2 rehearse Octane Baby.
Oh my gosh, that's
I first heard the Edge's guitar parts for that album out of context. I didn't know what I thought he was checking his guitar, but I heard like the envelope filter on Mysterious Ways and what is that effect? Because I was already aware of like, I had a little like Boss distortion pedal and, turned all the way up, and of course, and, like a cheap delay pedal, some like no name brand, but, listening to him check his tones. And, there were so many people that gathered there that they ended up playing a show.
Really?
Wow.
And the tickets were like really cheap. I mean, because my brother paid for both of us. Or maybe he got a discount because he worked for the park. I don't remember, but my parents just let us go. And, I'm like, I don't know, in 7th grade or something like that. I can't remember, 8th grade.
I hate
going
you
into
so
8th
much
grade
right now.
And
that's amazing.
And Pete was getting ready to be a freshman in high school. I think I've got that right. So it blew I could not comprehend what was happening.
Oh yeah, man.
And just with the, because on that tour they had the cars on cranes, and he would call up like George Bush, Senior, and on the big huge TVs, and I mean the production value was incredible, but I mean also just I pretty much learned to play guitar listening to like the Joshua Tree, and kind of the other bands that I. Nice.
My former boss's wife found this at a flea market and got it for me. But
that's a very nice mug for the listeners. That is a mug Taylor is holding. So we can create some theater of the mind. There's Bono's profile, the Edge looking as ominous and mysterious as ever. Larry Millen Jr. with that exquisite jawline.
Yes.
And Adam Clayton being ominous and reverberant in the low end regions. And in the back.
He is wearing his glasses in the middle of the desert, because why wouldn't he be?
Yes.
Hey there, dragonfly, I was wondering about your eyes. I just read that if you count them, it's 24,000. Bet you can see.
And then I guess later on, talking about moments, and just sort of like rambling here, but
I have a question about that last moment, if I may.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was talking to Ryan about before you logged on was that you have, for a long time, sought to make your live experiences more interactive and more sort of multimedia enhanced, if I can put it that way. It's almost more like an art installation, but not pretentious. And so there was one show you did, I wasn't there, but I remember seeing the video of it, where you put an audio file on SoundCloud, which is a like a music sharing site or file sharing site. And you had everybody take their phones out and go to this webpage and push play simultaneously. And it created like a synth pad sound, and then you played the song. So seeing you two figuring all that stuff out and adding that to more than just, oh, there's some guys playing guitar up there. Is that part of where that started? Did that kind of let you know this is possible?
Yeah, I probably, it began with experiences like that, the seeds of ideas, like the SoundCloud. That's called the Zipf organ, by the way.
That's great.
I still will pull it out occasionally at a house show or somewhere I haven't played. I might actually do that tonight in Orlando. Depending, it takes a minute to set it up, but now usually everybody in the audience has a mobile device, that can pull that up pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, I think it was maybe 2007 or 8. I did the Friends on Film tour where my friend Pete and I, who played like keys and drums, dressed all in white. We looked like a couple of house painters. And then our friend Brad Wolf, who's an incredible artist, graphic designer, video. I mean, he does it all visually. Every night he would create a video feedback loop combined with other images that he would overlay on top of them. And then he would project that onto us. And we also had either a white wall or a white screen behind us, doing that. And that's doing things that are interesting visually. I mean, that's just something inspiring to me.
Yeah.
That hopefully can draw in the folks in the audience as well. And that's just another level to create. I've always been attracted to that. It's one of the reasons why I created 5 videos for this record. I out of necessity needed to learn some videography for my work at the church because, overnight everybody had to do that because they had, we had a live stream and
right.
Or produce, videos for the congregation. So I basically got pretty good at using Photoshop and Illustrator and, Premiere and now Animate. And so I've used all of that to create these videos for the album. And I definitely want to do more of that. It's like creating, even though they are, I can't reach out and adjust your really nice SM7. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
There's a 2-dimensional image. Do I have that right? Of you, but behind you, that's a physical space. And so creating worlds like that for these songs is exciting to me. It's therapeutic. It's the little tinkering with the little pieces, all really time consuming, cutting out. I mean, I've got a bag of the 2 songs that I cut out every single letter of every single lyric of 2 songs. It's very time consuming, but it is also, I never built model planes, but it's almost like the same process.
Yeah.
And I'm just realizing now, I don't know if I've ever said it out loud, but it's the way I look at one word in the lyric of the second verse of a song. No, this needs to be the word "the" needs to be taken out.
Yeah.
Or actually, or needs to be added. Or instead of saying, like, I just wrote a song, it's not on the new album, but about suburban lawn care. And instead of saying a quiet street, I decided, no, it needs to be a dogleg street because specificity matters. The details matter. Yeah. It's the same way I approach everything that I make. I mean, because what else do we have but our own voice and story?
Yeah. And I think especially in the age that we're in, when so much stuff is not real, if we're honest, like these online relationships and things and stuff that we spend so much time on that's not where real life happens. It can help to connect and enhance real life perhaps, but that's not what the real deal is. Yeah. And, man, I'm gonna have to go drink a cup of coffee and think for a while. Ryan, you want to jump in while I'm thinking here?
Yeah, no, a lot of what you're saying kind of resonates with me. It makes you not only feel a part of what you're doing, it makes others kind of come into that, but even just to slow down. I mean, even little things you say. One of your songs kind of alluded to that. Like, just take a break, breathe and think about what's going on instead of all the craziness that's an illusion. And
you're talking about. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. You got it.
So I think you were referencing the line in "God coughed and woke me up."
Yeah.
It's sometimes hard for me to remember the lyrics if I'm not singing. You're doing all right. He said to tell you, but control is illusion. It's wrecking your head. Take a breath. Be still. Look at that crazy bug over there. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and even just that, like how it's playful, look at that crazy bug over there, but just the impact when you hear that, it's like, man, we're worrying about so much that is illusion, that isn't necessarily real. And there's this stuff that God created that we're missing out on.
Yes. And experiencing things through my son's eyes now after being a father. I mean, I started writing songs for this record when my son was 2. So I was still in that. And I hope I still have some of that, feeling of discovering a reservoir of emotions that was previously unknown to me. And hopefully I still feel like my empathy for other human beings has been deepened and widened. But yeah, when I first started writing these songs, my son was 2. And so that was very present on my mind. Yeah. And just experiencing the world through his eyes is, in his little hands, and now they're little boy hands, and just so many things, you collect these images of your child doing things that are curious to them or exciting or hurt them, and how much that will hurt you. And so how do we speak to these moments in a way that is honest and, and this is going back to kind of my, the struggle as to find a place as a creative person in the church, how do you, because there are more voices in this, but the two prominent ones are, you can only do it this way and it will only glorify God if you're only singing about God all day, all the time, God.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's the other voice that is outside the church, the only way to you can't do both. And I would say I probably lived in that second voice most of my life. And now I'm realizing that, and I'm living it, that my work is, at a church and I do creative work there. But from past experience, what is worship and what is performance being very confusing, I do not use that as my creative outlet. I do creative work, and it needs to function for a group of people, for a collective expression, whatever that is, if it's a video or if it's a hymn. But what I'm doing tonight in Orlando is I'll be singing the songs from this record and probably some other ones, and that is specific to my life and the people around me and the world that I am trying to process. And, that can be holy too. Can it?
Early morning, I was out running, and I heard the constellations whisper something ancient over me like hieroglyphic flame. We shall remain.
One of the things that I have long appreciated about the work that you do, and not just the work that you do, but kind of the sense of who you are as a person that comes through that. If I can back up a little bit, in our first interview of this series was with Josh Porter, and he played in a band called Showbread for many years. Very different to the music that you make for the most part. But one of the things we told him was that some of the music is not even necessarily my thing. I just appreciate the creative voice that he has and his perspective as an artist, and I'm there as much for that as anything else. And there's a thread that runs through your work is the holiness of the mundane, or the holiness of the ordinary, and that how a lot of what you spend your time doing is very, quote, ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were talking on the phone earlier this week about, you mentioned, well, I was on morning duty with my son, and that, you know, I relate to that because I have the same thing with my daughter, morning and evening. I, you know, get her up and take her to school and all that kind of stuff and pick her up. And you know, maybe what God is interested in, not maybe, but definitely we see from the scriptures that so much of your life is not lived in church. So much of your life is not lived with a worship song on your lips. It's figuring out how you're going to provide, and it's, you know, cleaning up poop and walking the dog and all that. Right. And God is just as interested in being glorified and present in those moments as he is on Sunday morning. And so to encounter somebody who so very clearly gets that and lives it, it helps you feel less isolated. You used that word in conversation the other day. And it lets you know that, like, well, it's less about performance and more just being, no matter where you are and what you're doing, and having art that helps us express that and gets that out. You know, in a like my background is in speech. That's what I studied in college, and we talk about the way ideas form and like rhetorical artifacts and all that kind of stuff. And that it's a vocabulary. Art is. It allows you to give voice to things that you can't express. And so having people like you who are writing songs or making videos about those things we have trouble expressing to the people around us, especially in church. I mean, that's been very life-giving to me at times. There's another album that I heartily recommend from somebody I hope we get to interview. Gable Price and Friends is the name of the band.
I'll check it out.
You should. They put out an album called Fractioned Heart in 2020, and there are several songs on there that I really clung to in a very difficult period of my life and in very difficult moments. And, you know, could God have used other stuff? He can do what he wants to, but those songs were there, and I was really glad.
You're talking about encountering art that helps you articulate, maybe not so much with words, but it helps you even visualize and experience the world in this way where, you know, if we are indeed, you know, created by God in his image, and we bear that image, you know, hopefully we can take that with us into whatever vocation we are pursuing, or just into the mundane too. You know, I've experienced a lot of that kind of art definitely through some impactful albums, but also film. And I think the way just a well-told story matched with a beautiful soundtrack or sound design, really. And those kinds of things have left such impression on me since I was a kid. My wife had never seen E.T. right when we were early when we were married, and was like, this is impossible. We have to immediately, we need to go find. So there was this, there's a neighborhood in DC, Arlington, Ballston. And in Boston, they were showing E.T. in this park. It was a weird location because the park is it's really just a concrete jungle with some pretty decent shrubberies, but they were playing E.T. and I was like, we're going to see E.T. And, you know, afterwards I asked her, cause I remember riding my bike and singing the theme song over and over in my head. And when I was in second grade, just, you know, and also really the end of that song, that movie, I'll still tear up, you know, when he's going home. Yeah. There's something about that. And, you know, there a lot of people can, you know, talk about Steven Spielberg and, you know, so heavy handed, you know, and John Williams, so melodramatic. I have a friend that's his perspective. That's not an accurate impression of his voice, but that can be, you know, these things we can find that holiness and that beauty in moments like that too. And what I have tried to do with this album, How to Make a Paper Airplane, I mean, these are, I will not perform these in churches.
Yeah.
I will not, it is not my intention, nor is it ever, to perform in churches, especially where within a worship context. I will never do that again. But to tell these stories about real moments of my life, my dad dying, my family spending a week with him, saying goodbye, experience a kind of death in myself, in realizing that what I had been trying to do since I was 18 is probably not going to happen. And so to shift and accept, but then on the other side of that, now that the album is finally done and the inside world can be let out into the outside, is it's not the end of something. It's actually not the death of something. It's the beginning of something. And I feel drawn to sharing these songs with people in clubs and in houses, and and then on Sunday morning when I'm singing a hymn at a tempo people can follow, in a key people can sing, that's a different thing. But I'm using a creative skill to do that too. Those are separate things to me. It's important for me and keeps me mentally stable, honestly, to separate those two things. I don't know if I was answering a question there or what, but I just talked a lot about something.
No, that's good. I'm kind of interested. You've mentioned a couple times even leaving your time away from the church, and that there was about a decade, and now kind of distinguishing the difference in how you use art in each context. I mean, was art a lot of the reason you feel like you kind of had that period there? Or?
Yeah. So right out of high school, I my older brother went to a small school, and we got a scholarship because our dad was a pastor at the time. So it was a Christian school. And I found out that I also would get a scholarship if I played music for the school. So that's really what I did for like the first year and the only year of college that I experienced, because I really did not enjoy that environment. But I met some of my very best friends during that time. And if I had not gone there and started playing with the other band, the bassist of that school band was also in like an original music band. And not like just before, I want to say 98, we got a record deal with a subsidiary of Goatee Records. And that was kind of the rise of that whole modern worship thing. And it just got to be really confusing for me. I think just that, and not for me. And I think the reason why is, here's one day that I was probably like the nail in the coffin for me was we were playing this massive event somewhere in the Southwest. And I can't remember, some of these things I've just like completely blocked out. But the speaker for this thing, I mean, this is like at a football stadium or whatever. They had like large sports ball events at this thing. And, this dude is like, and my cynicism is showing here, so I'm fully aware of it, so I'm going to try to temper that. But this just seemed strange because we got all the lights, on the stage on, everything's blacked out. It's like some really mediocre version of that U2 show that I mentioned to you. And this guy who's not a musician is like walking out on the catwalk, and he's, we're his backing band, but he's like singing the lead on this like really popular, worship song. I called my Miriam and I were not married. I called her. I was like, I'm done with this. I will not do this again. I'm done. And shortly after that, the lead singer of the band decided, he wanted to be a dad and not travel, and, everybody parted ways. And that's when I started recording demos for my first record, I Still the Morning Sun. And that was 2002. And I stopped playing music in church then, completely stopped, because I did not want to be in a situation like that again. And I will not, ever. But 10 years later, I made that statement. 10 years later, thereabouts, I met Chuck, who planted the Anglican Church, and I was introduced to the rhythms of a liturgical setting. And that was more, there's a place for music. It's not a 3-hour, jam session or whatever. And, it's just, this is just some people that's their passion. So I don't mean to speak ill of that at all. I'm just telling you what happened to me.
Here's a song about God. He told me one time when I was trying to sleep, he coughed and woke me up out of a dream.
About a year after attending that Anglican church, where everything seemed like it was very purposeful. This is the purpose of this, why we are singing this hymn, because this underlines what the pastor is speaking about. And we are singing the doxology here because, it appealed to me because there was no place for performance to enter into the situation. Now we tune our guitars and we want to sing in key, but we're not, we don't got all the lights blacked out, and I don't got my foot up on the monitor and ripping a guitar. So it's just like, it's ridiculous.
I think there's a distinction between putting on a show and performing with excellence.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm not saying people can't, it's not what I am trying to do, but I know that there are a lot of really talented folks that make music, exclusively for that genre, and that's cool.
I don't think that's what you're saying. You were talking about, like, we still tune our guitars and want to sing in key, and it's like we want it to be good because anything worth doing is worth doing well. But we're not doing it well as a, hey, everybody look at this thing. It's to enhance, like you use the word purpose there. And I think something that bothers me in most contexts I'm in is how many things that we do without purpose. There's not a why behind them. I started noticing this in church as a teenager, and it has gone with me into every context of my life that I find myself in. But that's really what I want to know. Do we know why we're doing what we're doing? And the answer a lot of the time is no. Either because we didn't know we needed to be asking why we're doing what we're doing, we're just doing something, or we know good and well why we're doing what we're doing, and we don't want scrutiny. We don't want to uncover, we don't want to turn those rocks over. I think, I was thinking about this earlier, that art like the art that you make, I think sometimes is unwelcome in the church because of its prophetic critique. And that is not a phrase I came up with. I heard somebody else say that. But like, who wants to be held accountable by art? Who wants to really contemplate their own shortcomings and the grace that is needed to cover that? And I think that's part of why songs like that sometimes don't fly, is that's the reason people are there is not that. The why is different. The purpose is different. And that's where some of the tension comes from.
Yeah, I have felt that, and I just, it's probably why I decided that I, for a long time, I can't do what I do in church, but I'm able to keep the lights on in this house because I, am doing creative work at a church. It has a different purpose than the songs that I've written for this record. And it's two different things, and they are drawing from the same well, but I will not confuse the two. I will not blend the two.
I remember a conversation you and I had, this was years ago now, probably 10 years or more. You were, well, this stuck with me because of something you said more recently. You were looking at booking a tour at the time that was going to be routed through our area potentially. And I was working at a church at the time, and I asked if you were interested in potentially performing there, and you said, I might consider it as long as I can be myself. And that stuck with me. And it stuck with me all the more that when you made your announcement of your move and your what is now your quote day job, that was one of the things you included. I'm being asked to be myself. And so I can't help but think, knowing some of the struggles that you just described, because you haven't been belligerent about it, but you haven't hidden it either over the years, and that we're having this conversation because I think a lot of people have had similar experiences and trying to make sense of these things. And so I thought, man, I really saw the kindness of God in that, that he, through your friend, the pastor of the church that where you're on staff now, was able to provide you with, here's an outlet that will check these boxes, but also I know you, I care for you deeply, and I'm not going to ask you to not be yourself. I'm not going to ask you to play a game you don't want to play. So I imagine that while it's difficult at times, I'm sure there's a freedom in that makes it worth it.
Yeah, some days when I am well, I am able to accept that, and I am able to have contentedness and to feel grateful. And for such a long time, I believed that success looked a certain way, and if it wasn't achieved in that very specific way, then you failed, and I still struggle with that. But I am very grateful to be able to provide for my family and to be able to pursue being an artist, and I feel like I was able to pull together a lot of experiences in my life to make this record, to say some things I've been trying to say since the beginning. Sometimes I think of it like, these songs, I'm not going to play these on Sunday morning, but I would talk about these things if I had a beer with anybody from church.
Sure.
These things would come up, Now, some people may not be interested in that kind of vulnerability, but if I'm with a trusted friend, that's the kind of stuff we talk about.
It's interesting, isn't it? Ryan and I, I want to hear your take on this, but like the first song on this new album, How to Make a Paper Airplane, that you've made, it is very much about like these interactions we have with people, and we read these scripts to each other, basically.
Right.
And nothing of substance necessarily comes of it. But like now, and for a long time, this started when I was 18 or 19, you find that, I don't really want to spend my time having those kind of conversations. I'd rather spend my time talking about the things that actually matter. Even if it's with people I don't know that well. Like I'd rather, how can we get to that stuff is what I'm always thinking. Even if you're in the grocery store, like asking, hi, how you doing is different than like, so for example, if I'm out somewhere, I'll say, hey, how's work going for you today? And it's not so intrusive that they think it's weird, but it prompts a real human response. Because sometimes they'll be like, actually it's going well, or, oh, geez, it's not going so great. But like when Ryan and I talk, most of the time it's this kind of stuff. You have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I'll try not to word vomit because there's so much in my head right now about all this, but the church has to be an environment where it will allow real art, because for so long in our personal lives and in the church, we've created this atmosphere where it is like, I'm going to ask you how you are, but tell me you're fine and keep walking, or sing this song and don't really think about it, or do this and because we've done it. And to take time and to invest is hard. Yeah. But I mean, you're not going to understand people or the level they're trying to communicate with you if you can't, get past ourselves in many ways, but even just the normal trying to get through the day to day.
Just as you were saying that to invest is hard. I mean, listen, man, talk about like word vomit. I think that's kind of my MO. So, we live pretty close to St. Augustine, and my son likes the fort. I mean, come on. I love the fort too. It's freaking cool. So, but we were walking down the street. We were with some friends, and there was a guy in a wheelchair, and I met his eyes, and I think I just I was with my son and my wife and my friend. I said, how you doing? Just kind of like how you doing real quick. And he said, yeah, I'm doing, brother, you know, and there's a split second there where I thought I could say one more sentence to this guy and we'll probably be here for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm ashamed to say that I thought, well, that's inconvenient to me right now. So that's not what happened. I just kind of smiled at him and nodded and we kept walking. But when you said that to invest is inconvenient, this is something my dad was not bothered by. To be inconvenienced. This is something that he did to people throughout my life. I would see this happen all the time with anybody, you know, and that is the kind of example I want to set for my son. You know, my dad wasn't perfect by any stretch, but I did see a lot of moments where he did love people that way, whether they knew they were being loved or not, you know. And sometimes he was taken advantage of, you know, his kindness was taken advantage of. But that's what I thought about when you said it's hard to invest, because it is, and it's uncomfortable, and it's, you know, mostly just easier to kind of say, everything is fine, I'm okay, how are you?
Everything is fine, I'm okay, how are you? Oh, you know, can't complain, I'm alright, better Midland. It was so good morning into you. Yes, it was, let's hang soon. Take care, man. But what I really wanna say is that
So this segues super well, because you could say the same things about art made by people of faith. And specifically this album that is coming out in the next few weeks.
March 11th.
There we go.
Yeah.
Single comes out next Friday.
Next
right?
Friday, 1 week from now. Yeah, February 25th.
So you didn't have to do what you did. You didn't have to be as honest as you were. You didn't have to work as hard for as long as you have. But it shows that you did all those things. And I think, again, not to cast a judgmental eye over anything that somebody else has made. It just, I think, it's like this soup that my wife is making today. You know, like it has a history and it has a pedigree and a story. And you can't just whip it up in the microwave in 10 minutes. It has certain ingredients that have to be made and mixed and added in a certain way at a certain time. And as a result, it's an heirloom. This soup is of our family, and more than one family, like generational kind of thing. And I would compare what you've done here to something like that. And then like this is firstborn of the flock kind of thing. You know, and I think that shows in everything that you've done. I won't nerd out too hard because I love audio production and mixing and all that kind of stuff. I think this is the best sounding album that you've made, and I've listened to all of them many times. I think this is the best your voice has ever sounded. Like the warmth and the intimacy of the instruments, like it's a complete package of care, I guess I would say. And I didn't bring you on here just to gush at you either, but the reality is that. As you just described, we all have moments where we feel like, you know, I could have done that differently, or I should have done that differently. I think, if I may, as somebody who doesn't know you well, this album is not one of those for you. I think you did the thing you set out to do, and it came along at a time in my life where I could relate so strongly to so many of the things that you're talking about, and that's holy, you know? Like, that's a holy thing.
Thank you for that. And, you know, I was completely laid bare in a couple of these songs. And that was, you know, when I sang some of these things into the borrowed Neumann U87s that I got for a few months, within the first, you know, 9 months or so that we lived here, I did about a song a month, you know. So into 2018, into 2019, my plan was I'm just going to document what's happening to me in my head and outside of my head right now.
Yeah.
And some things I'm realizing have, you know, I've been thinking about and feeling for a really long time. but just didn't really have the tools to articulate them well with my voice, with my words, with my instrument yet.
Yeah.
And I'd only set out to record what I could do well. So I'm a halfway decent pianist, enough to like accompany myself, you know, nothing fancy. The bridge to, you know, that first song, that took me a while to write because I had a really specific idea in my mind, but it's like on the guitar, I could play it with my eyes shut, but on the piano, because, you know, it was my first instrument, but I'm not as competent as a pianist. I really had to work hard on that, you know?
Yeah.
I really worked hard on it and I got it. You know, it wasn't the first take by any means. So when I finished tracking all these songs, except for this, You Won't Need Your Glasses Anymore, which I wrote in 2020 after my dad died. That was the last song I wrote for the record. I only recorded what I could do well, and I thought that was going to be the end of it. This is it. This is just going to be me and my guitars, maybe some piano. I'm not going to adorn this with any other. There's no electric guitar. The only amplified things on this album now are, if you count the little circuitry in the automaton, which, you know what that is? That's like a little, like it's a little like Japanese, looks like a musical note, but you,
yeah, I've seen it.
It's like a little, almost like a theremin, but not. And then probably just, you know, Jennifer Condos's electric bass, and then Tyler Chester's, you know, mellotron and the organ, but everything else is completely acoustic. So I did all this on my own. I sent it to my friend Matt, who I recorded with, for Matt Williams. I recorded with a bunch over the years. Thought that was going to be it. You know, I was really just hoping he'd like mix it, and I'd put it out, and that was going to be it. And he asked me, what do you want to do with this? Like, what's your plan? And I was like, I already told you, this is the plan. Like, this is the plan. This is it. And he said, I have an idea. I want to send these songs to some people I've worked with before. And Matt is the reason why the album sounds the way it does, because I'm not the engineer that Matt is at all. Okay, so I did record my parts, but Matt took what I recorded. I did have the advantage of using these Neumann U87s, a marvel of German engineering, but you know, some of it I did not place them correctly. And some of like the piano on Did You Know I Was a Ghost was a complete afterthought. They were like way off, like 6 feet from the piano, but I didn't have the time to readjust because I needed to get home, because I'm like, couldn't skip out on bath time one more time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I just was like, I hit record loop and I played along with it. And when I got home, I was like, oh, I'm going to keep that.
Yeah, that's great.
So, but I sent all this to Matt, and he sent it to Jay and Jen, and fast forward to 2019, that summer, you know, he was in Los Angeles, and he's like, you should come and meet Jay and Jen. I met them at Largo. Jay played with Joe Henry, which is a whole other, that's talk about a recent pivotal, mind-blowing thing. I mean, if you don't know Joe Henry's work, well, you probably have heard a lot of records he's produced, but he's a master at what he does. I met them, Jay and Jen, and they were so kind and unpretentious, you know, and welcoming. So they said they wanted to play on the record, and then it was a matter of figuring out how to do it. And man, COVID almost completely derailed the whole thing, but somehow we did it. And, you know, Dennis Crouch and Tyler Chester later on. But Matt is the reason why the record sounds so good. I mean, I had something to do with it, you know, being that I did a couple things. But and Jay and Jen, so Jay Bellerose, Jennifer Condos, Dennis Crouch, Tyler Chester, Matt Williams took what I made and cast the room, which ended up being a not a physical one, but he cast the room, and they remotely somehow it's like tracking with remote viewing or something, just transported themselves into my space. I don't know how they did it, but it doesn't sound like we recorded separately.
No, not at all.
But that's a testament to their ears and their mind and their skills, you know. They took something that I was really proud of already and completely elevated it. And I didn't have anything to do with that. They did their part, you know? So I agree with you that I feel that it's the best thing I've ever done. I've been trying to make this record since I started. And my hope is that it will be the beginning of many more. I'm probably in denial or stubborn or whatever, but I believe that I can do this work and provide for my family. And I don't know what that's going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, but what we're talking about, this album, this is the kind of thing that I want to do with the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And I would even, because I think some of the people that follow and subscribe to this podcast who understand the statement that I feel like I am called to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm called to do. Mm-hmm. You know, and I don't like to use that language a lot, but I think it's important for me to say that statement because I feel that deeply in my core.
One of the things that we talked about in the intro to this kind of season 2 is that the first mention, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, the first mention of God putting the Holy Spirit in somebody is in Exodus 31, I think. And it's a gentleman named Bezalel. Name your kid Bezalel. But
Betsy.
Yes, exactly. But specifically it said that God put the Spirit on him for the working in metal and stone and the creating of beautiful things for the tabernacle. There's no way that's an accident. So that there are some people that, like, God thought enough of it to have whomever write it down so that we would read it however much longer later. And that really stuck with me. That's important. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know, I feel the move and the leading of the Lord in this direction. And, you know, he has given me skills to work in these mediums, and so that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, we have to be aware of we have a purpose as followers of Christ, and he's going to give us passions that feed that purpose. And so I think it should be a natural outpouring and a calling that we feel.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to have this conversation. I kind of wish we could just all have hung out in the same space, you know? And this space that we're in, I mean, this is what I'm trying to make music for, to gather around this type of these ideas, this conversation. And it's what I've been trying to do since, like I said, I started out. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about these songs. And I want to thank you for listening and just the kind words, you know. And I hope whoever is listening, you know, if you're a creative person, that you would continue to work on that unfinished, whether it's a painting or it's a song, whatever it is, keep working on that. And it's important work. And if you're just an advocate for art, I hope that you will ask yourself the difficult questions and push through and be vulnerable to allow these kinds of conversations to continue.
And that is a wrap on this conversation, or on this chapter of it, might be a better way to put it. Thank you so much to Andy for giving us time and sharing your perspective with us. It was really a great conversation for me to get to participate in, being such a fan of what he's done. All of the music that you heard on this episode is from his upcoming album, How to Make a Paper Airplane. Again, it's out March 11th, and the first single, which you're hearing now, Did You Know I Was a Ghost, is already available. And I've listened to that thing a whole lot over the past few weeks, and it's just gorgeous. Highly encourage you to dive into that. If you want to keep up with other things that Andy's doing, he's on Patreon and social media outlets, and his music is on all the major music retailers. His website is thecowardschoir.com if you want to find all his stuff in one place. But as he said, this is not the end. This is the beginning of a new chapter for him, and I'm looking forward to where it goes. And as far as for us, we have a couple more conversations in this series lined up as of now, and we may keep going on these kinds of topics. We'd love to hear feedback if you like what we're doing now, or have suggestions for different things that we could talk about, or people that we could conversate with. We'd love to hear them. We are on social media at Unbetween Podcast, and also if you want to send us an email, it's unbetweenpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so very much for listening.